Are you ready?
Yeah, man, I think I'm ready.
Are
That
you
sounds that sounds a little bit intimidating, man. It's like, well, I'm
well,
ready for what, man? Like, what? You haven't even told me what's going on here. You
are you
know,
ready to listen to the Black Powder podcast
the
and
Black
interact?
Powder Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on the Firearms Radio Network. Marcus, I got a question for you, man.
Proceed.
All right, so this is like a help a black person question, man. I saw this the other day on like a quiz. You go to a cookout, all right?
Right.
All right. So, what is the first thing you say? Do you say, A, when is the meat going to be ready? Do
Mm.
you say, B, who made the potato salad? Or do you say, C, oh, I didn't know he was out of jail? Which one?
Well,
This was on like a quiz the other day.
yeah, I that one's difficult because the first thing I do when I go to any cookout is reconnaissance and see who's there. So that might fall along the lines of C.
It
And
said that if you're most black, you choose B.
well,
That's what it said.
I was gonna get to that part. I'm gonna assume the host made the potato salad unless otherwise spoken.
Okay.
Because if you come to my house, I'm making the potato salad. And
Don't let me
I'm
make it, man.
making
Put some
all that.
raisins in it.
No. We have enough melanin. The melanated cookouts. You're not going to insult anybody because potato salad is personal. It's something that could cause an argument. Potato salad and macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, this
Meat,
is a big deal.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a big deal. So the meat is not. How come the meat is not divisive? Like what? Like to me. So like here's like at a typical barbecue that I might attend. Right, the
Yeah.
meat is like the centerpiece of everything. Right, like all the guys are gathered around the grill, and everyone is discussing their grilling skills, and everyone is like doing whatever. And the sides are really just like not even a thing, and maybe that's why you wouldn't want me bringing the potato salad
That's
to your
right.
cookout. But I have a feeling I can make. I made something probably pretty good, man.
Well, you said it, the sides, because you said it as if it was a side thought or something secondary. It is
Yeah,
not. The meat, it's always hit and miss because a lot of people like their meat a certain way. They use certain seasonings.
yeah.
When I did that brisket this past weekend, I went a little extra. Most of the time, it's just salt and pepper. I'm very basic on my brisket, but this one, I felt kind of
Yeah, bro,
you know
you cooked it
adventurous.
up big, man. You cooked it up really big. I saw you had
Yeah,
like chicken and like all kind of stuff, and I was like, man, dude,
that
grilling's
was
gotten expensive, man. I mean, inflation has hit
uh,
everything, but man, like I was looking at charcoal the other day, and I was like, man, this
yeah.
is this is a whole different world now. Like
I understand the inflationary aspect of this, but I'm curious as to the profit margins of these companies at this point.
man,
Because in the beginning, the supply chain issues were a major factor in the very beginning, but now I'm curious as to how much money these companies are making
Man, you're starting to
year
sound like
over year.
a socialist over here. No,
Well,
it's a good question. It's a good
I'm
question.
100% capitalist.
So the
Without,
free market answer to that is it's really none of your damn business, right? The free market answer to that is that if it's
well,
too high, that competitors will come in and will close the gap and will take the business.
right.
That's of
Those
course if you have a free
are-
market, which we don't really have a free market
no,
anymore.
we don't.
Last time I checked, if you are in most cities in America and you go shopping for durable goods and consumables, you're going to go to the same brand name stores that everybody else in America goes to. We've talked about
Right.
this. And if I go to, for instance, Kroger, which is my grocery store here, or I go to Costco, I like Costco more, obviously, but they might be like two brands of charcoal. There's like Kingsford and then like the store brand, which is like Kingsford, just repackaged. So not really like a thing. So I feel you, man. I mean, I don't know, dude. We've talked about the economy a lot on here, and we talked about this last podcast, talked about the jobs numbers and just the permanent job losses, how they've been increasing.
Mhm.
And I think we could have something really kind of happen here, maybe get a deflationary event or something like that. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know how we got on barbecue, which got on deflation and
I want
inflation.
to
But
talk about one more thing
okay,
related to barbecue.
all right.
My pecan wood that I use for my delicious barbecue. That
Word.
barbecue was for my coworkers, by the way. I every year for my birthday, which is Saturday, I make a barbecue, but it's twofold because it's also the day one of the worst bosses I ever had. That was our last official day was October 1st. So every first Monday in October, I try to make a barbecue.
Wait a second. Your birthday is September 30th?
No, October 7th.
Oh,
This,
okay.
this
All right.
Saturday.
Sorry. All right. Let's say because my mother's is September 30th, so I was like, okay. So there you go.
Happy birthday, Mrs. White.
She says thank you. I'll let her know. She says thank you.
So wrapping the barbecue segment up, the pecan wood has gone from $28 to $35 in the last year, and it pisses me the hell off because I need my pecan wood.
Man, that's not that. I mean, I guess that's percentage wise, that's pretty high. We have pecan trees here, just everywhere. So if you want like pecan wood here, you just go get some.
Where my family grew up in Alabama, there was pecan trees.
Yeah,
damn near on every block.
Growing up in the summer, man, like well, I wasn't really summer. I guess it's like kind of into like late fall, early something like that. We would eat a lot of pecans, man, and you would just get them off the ground and eat them. I mean, that's kind of a thing you did. Meat's going to be ready when I say so, Nancy. Yeah, that's right, Ted. It's going to be ready when we say
Shut
so.
up, Ted. His actual name is Sally. And
he
really?
Lives
up in the Bay. I know this guy from social media. He lives up in the Bay Area, and I consider everything north of Santa Barbara, South Oregon. So, Ted, kiss my ass. Love you, bro.
Yeah, man. Dick. Yeah, well, Ted, I'm not gonna say kiss your ass, kiss my ass. Thanks for commenting.
You're sticking with the white guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's right, man. We gotta stay. These prison rules, Marcus.
I gotta get. I would ask any black people to chime in so we could.
Yeah, exactly, man. No, old pecans, man. Some people call them pecans. I was gonna say I can get you some in Oklahoma. It's a shorter drive. Yeah, a little bit shorter, man. Yeah, dude. Like that's a pretty like normal memory for me, man. Growing up, it seemed like I don't know exactly. I can't remember when like pecans are dropping, but it seemed like it was right after like when school kind of started. Like on the weekends, you'd ride your bike to a buddy's house, and like y'all be eating pecans in the backyard or something like that. Like that was a pretty common thing.
Speaking of nuts dropping, Ted likes it because he lives up in the Bay Area of California. So don't talk about nuts too much because Ted will get a little excited and get.
All right.
At any rate,
so you called this emergency podcast. Like you texted me, yes. You texted me and you were like freaking out and you were like, "Hey man, we gotta get on and do an episode because like you think this is like the hugest thing. This Kevin McCarthy.
I don't know if it's huge. It is historic, and I want to send a shout out to Common Arms Trade Company for sponsoring the Black Powder podcast. But this is the first time in the history of the United States that a Speaker of the House has been voted out. The only other time that I read about something like this happened is when the Speaker actually died. So,
whose Speaker was that?
Oh, it was over 100 years ago. It was
interesting. That's an interesting trivia. That'd be a Jeopardy question probably next week. I bet you.
Any poli-sci majors should chime in on that.
Ask the Google machine that one. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it is historic. But I mean, everything seems pretty fucking historic lately. Every time I turn around, there's something historic happening.
And it's sad because, we like to say Congress is a circus lightly, and that is it's a literal term now. It's literally a circus because these clowns and tyrants have no regard for Americans. During the debate, when our last episode last week, the candidates were talking about Americans need to get to work and do all of this stuff. Yeah. And I was remiss in not saying this point. Congress works less than 160 days a year.
Yeah, they're not.
And
they're not willing to like talk about work ethic. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, every 3 months they go on a month recess and shit like that.
Dude, pretty soon, man. This is my prediction. If like the Republic stays together, and you can mark my words on this one, within like our lifetimes for sure, but probably within the next decade, congressional will go all remote. They won't even like be required to go there anymore. Once the dress code got changed, the other a couple weeks ago, I was like, man, this is slipping. Like this is we're defaulting to like the lowest common denominator. Like that's where we're going, man. So it's going to be like Zoom Congress, and people, you'll have a guy on his couch, sitting in his pajamas, like deciding the fate of like some country. Are we going to go nuke them or take their oil or something like between reruns of the Andy Griffith show? Like that's going to be what the future looks like.
Well, for me personally and politically, I believe Congress should be part-time. Because all they need to do is make sure the government is funded. if there is a foreign development where Congress is called to declare war on somebody, they should be recalled. Other than that, how many more laws do we actually need?
Man, we don't, and that's really the issue too, man. Is we talk about this, of course. This is the thing that separates libertarians from everybody else. Is the Republican Party likes to say they're the party of limited government, but they haven't reduced the size of government in 100 years.
Yeah.
At least the Democrat Party is honest about the fact that they're constantly looking for more and more government, progressively larger.
Yes.
So, I think that it becomes this thing, man, where the U.S. Congress today, essentially, the real work they do, the real work is it's become, one omnibus bill at the end of every session, where they fund everything in one bill. It'll be thousands of pages. No one has time to read it. They pass it and they're done. And
Right.
everything between the start of the session until when that fucking bill passes is all theater. Every bit of it is just theater, pandering, and positioning. None of it actually accomplishes anything, benefits the American people, or has any actual political willpower with it. Notice, and so this to me, like when we texted me about this, I was like, man, this is par for the course, dude. Like,
Right.
this is like, oh, it's historic, but we got to have something going on. We got to have some kind of drama going on. We got to keep the rhetoric going.
Yeah.
It's us against them. Oh, the rhinos and the dinos, and we got to, do all this. I mean, you said it best earlier. We talk about being a circus. Look, dude, you can replace one clown with another. It's still going to be a circus.
Right. And that's why I found it weird that with a 4 or 5 seat majority, the Republicans would make this play going into an election year.
Yeah.
Because what kind of message do you think that's sending to the American people?
Man, I try not to get in the heads of the RNC. That's like
So that's one reason I like you.
Yeah, I try not to, man, because that seems like a really dangerous place. And I don't think like they think, because I tend to use common sense and they tend not to.
Right.
There's some sort of angle with this that we haven't yet figured out. And I believe that it will expose itself as things happen. If you ask the average sort of MAGA conservative today, and I've seen these conversations happen on social media, and especially again here in Arkansas, deep red country, this is another opportunity for Trump to come in, right? And of course, that's everything. Every time something happens, that's what this is when it's going to happen. 2 more weeks, Marcus. 2 more weeks. And so, and if, oddly enough, it seems like the Democrats are incredibly silent on this matter. There's not a lot of noise from them. So, man, I don't know. I don't know if this is a stall tactic to continue try to lay blame. I don't know if maybe even Kevin McCarthy himself came out and said, "Hey, can y'all vote me the fuck out this job?"
It could be a possibility. I think one reason the Democrats are silent is because when your enemy is going through a minefield, you don't want to say anything to them.
They're not enemies, though. You gotta remember they're best buddies. Yeah, this is pro wrestling. This is Hulk Hogan versus Macho Man Randy Savage. This is nobody's an enemy here, man. But we're coming up on the end of session here, and we have some really, really difficult conversations that are happening in this nation. This Ukraine situation, more and more people are getting tired of it.
Right.
Us libertarians, we've been against it since day one. That was really a minority opinion early on, if you remember. Do you remember how many yard signs there were? I stand with Ukraine, and profiles changed and all this.
Yeah.
Those people, even a lot of those people, are finally realizing this is all bullshit. And we told them it was going to be bullshit, and they would see it eventually, and they are seeing it. And so you have like that kind of mentality and opinion of the American people changing. And then also, I think that you can only push people so far, and people are tapped out, dude. Like, the free money is gone. The low interest rates are gone.
Right.
The high flying highs of the stock market are gone. The kind of the odd thing that happened with COVID, the COVID boom that happened for people that had assets and a little bit of retirement, that's over.
Mhm.
And I think the American people as a majority now are like, what the fuck is going on? And so you probably have a number of people in the Republican Party that are like, how do we salvage a 2024 election season when we know we're going to vote for these very unpopular things?
Okay,
Right?
I have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
If Mr. MW for Liberty, Michael White, was successful, I think you were successful in your election bid. But
Thanks.
if you had got voted in Congress, how would you have voted on the McCarthy thing?
You mean to kick him out?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I mean, I think that I'd be voting to kick anybody out. Like that would probably, like I'd be like, change is good.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was like, sure, I probably wouldn't have voted him in to begin with. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't have cared. Let's say that what the interesting thing in my always game about in my head is, what if you had 4 or 5 libertarians in the House of Representatives? Okay, things come down to such a tight vote
Right.
in the U.S. House historically in the past 25 to 30 years. Such a tight vote. You're talking about 2 to 3 to 4 people controlling everything is what it
Right.
comes down to. So when people ask, well, what can you do as one libertarian in a Congress? A fuckload, actually. You can do a lot because you have to get your buy-in. So imagine 4 or 5. Dude, Kevin McCarthy would have never been the speaker to begin with, right? That just would have never happened. And, we'd have been like, hey, we're not voting for this. I can stay here all day. I got snacks. I got a Game Boy. Like I can post up right here. Apparently the dress code's been lifted, so I can just kick it in my like joggers and my hoodie. And we can sit here all day. We can sit here till September if you want to, gentlemen, but I'm not gonna vote for this guy. And we'll be like, hey, you can pull somebody else out that's not a member of Congress. And that's so the interesting parallel, I think, too, as we talk about, the presidential election of 2024. And, we had RFK has now announced he's going to run as an independent. We'll talk about that more. Of course, you have a libertarian that's going to run. You're going to have a Green Party candidate that's going to run. You may have a Forward Party candidate. You may even have a No Labels Party candidate. Now, not all those candidates will have ballot access in every state, but you're going to have one of the most spread elections, at least in the last 30 years, in my opinion. Right. And so what happens if the U.S. House, if the night of the election, nobody gets 270 electoral votes? So the House has to pick, right?
Yes.
And no one's going to pick, like, they're going to be like, well, we want Trump. That's what the Republicans are going to say. The Democrats are not going to vote for that.
No.
Right. And then there's going to be Republicans that won't vote for it. And then the Democrats are going, like, we want Biden. And they're like, no, we're not doing that. And the Democrats have already besmirched RFK, so they won't pick him. And so you might end up like, that would be the ideal, right? As an independent executive. And how cool would that be if, like, you had an independent executive because, a Lars or a Chase for president, or a Mike Termont, these are going to be guys who are like, you better send me 2/3 majority votes every day because I'm vetoing whatever you send me.
Right.
So y'all got to work together and find out some real solutions, or I'm not signing anything,
Now, we spoke in the pregame about how you never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
And this is and one of the reasons why I call for this supremely informational and important episode of the Black Powder Podcast is because I think libertarians have a grand opportunity here.
I mean, we always have an opportunity, but
it's seizing it.
I mean, look, here's the deal. If you want to talk about seizing an opportunity like in the U.S. House tonight or in the next week or before the session ends, no, not really.
Right.
Other than like a Justin Amash coming in, maybe, right? But if you want to talk about this being another piece that can be added to the, hey, look at the bullshit from the two parties pile that a libertarian in the 2024 election cycle will be able to discuss. Well, certainly we've added that to it. But I don't know if this is enough to push over. We talked about this, man. Like, Richmond, North of Richmond came out, right? And amazing song. Everybody's playing it. And like the first, 2 days after it came out, I think I told you, and I was like, dude, most of the people listening to this are going to vote for another Richmond, North of Richmond again. They're going to jam this all, summer and winter. And then come election in 2024, they're going to vote for the same rich piece of shit that's already there right now. Because why? Because, well, I don't want the other guy to win, and voting for the libertarians throwing my vote away. And so, I mean, that's kind of where I'm with it. That I've oscillated between the white pill and the black pill back and forth, puns intended. Not trying to get racial here on it, but, that's where I am with it, man. Like, it's an opportunity, but I mean, more than that, I can't really say.
This whole episode of our current political dilemma reminds me of an episode of Fear Factor. Because it's not about shit in itself, but overcoming a fear of something. And if Americans could just simply overcome their fear of change, and this is one of the most frustrating things to me as a libertarian, and I don't know when I came to this realization, but voting for the same shit over and over again and expecting different results is,
I mean,
I don't know if it was when I heard that first time I heard
definition of insanity.
definition of insanity.
Well, I mean, and again, you continually have. I think right now, congressional approval rating is at its lowest it's ever been. I want to
As
say
it
ever been. But most of those people will keep their jobs, because
say
exactly the same reason. And here's the truth. You and I and people that are in the circles that we run in and the people that we talk to, we're very politically minded. We talk about politics a lot. We focus on it a lot. We're aware of it a lot. Dude, most people, I've been out there and I've met with voters. And I'll tell you this, most voters do not think about who they're going to vote for really pretty much anything, but maybe president, up until about a week before the polling stations open. And that's not really a dig necessarily at the American people. The American people got a lot of shit going on. Okay. You got people trying to put food on the table. They got kids to put through school. They're trying to pay their medical bills. Every single thing that they're buying is 3 to 4 times as expensive as it used to be. Their wages haven't increased. So I don't blame, the blue collar guy that's just trying to get his 40 hours and a little bit of overtime, who doesn't know who is going to be on his ballot until 2 days before. I don't blame that guy. But that's kind of by design, right? We stress the American people out by design to where they can't be thinking about these things. They can't be thinking about these escapes. Because if you gave anybody with any decent amount of sense a year to consider this, 2 years to think about these things, they would have their minds so made up by election day. They'd be like, you know what, honey, fuck it. I'm voting for that libertarian guy. I don't give a shit what anybody says at work. I've come to the realization, I understand now that these people up here, it doesn't matter if this guy gets in or this guy gets in, the same shit's going to happen. Yeah. It could happen at a different speed, but I don't give a fuck if I hit a brick wall at 60 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour. Both of those things are bad. And that's the choice the American people tend to make every election as well. I guess we're going to hit the brick wall at 60 because that's better than 70. I'm like, how about just avoid the wall altogether?
It's basic tribalism. Because American, I have relatives that are, as you know, I'm in California, that are just hardcore Democrats, and they hear the things I say, they see the things I post, and they want to throw their democratic values in my face at Thanksgiving. I'm the opposite of a lot of white people, where you go and you have your racist aunt or your racist uncle that likes Trump. I have to go to Thanksgiving dinner and I have to listen to people that tell me how Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden are great people. And I'm like, they're pieces of shit.
And they're racist too. I mean, so
they're just as racist, because Gavin Newsom he just put 11% tax on guns and ammo in California to fund anti-gun violence initiatives.
anti-gun violence, right?
And with every other sin tax, it's like they put like a $5-6 tax on cigarettes. And so eventually people stop smoking as much, and they use that tax to fund anti-smoking programs. Well, the tax revenue from those programs eventually goes down as the sin tax works.
That's the double-edged sword of sin taxes.
Yeah. And then they try to they run deficits trying to fund these fucking programs that they put in effect on taxes to reduce the subject matter that
Marcus, you don't got to convince me. Okay. I know how crazy these things are. This is the question that I tend to ask statists of all colors, red or blue or anything in between. When they begin to defend something, for instance, again, I say something like, whatever. I just simply ask them, okay, well, what has that done for you in the past 10 years?
Right.
That's what I say. What has that done for you in the past 10 years? And you know what? Most of the time, most people can't tell me a single thing.
Not a damn thing.
They can't tell me a single thing. Now, I've had some people that have said, well, my business was the best when so-and-so was in office. Or, my price of this was the best when so-and-so was in office. And I say, okay, besides something that could be completely coincidental, what direct effect of policy of any of these people that you support has made your life better?
Nada.
And they can't point to anything. Yeah. And see, that's the kind of challenge that we have to start giving people. We're not here to fight a philosophical debate. This is a game of practicality. This is that simple. What is it doing for you? The only intelligent answer I've heard about that is a voter said, well, the Affordable Care Act and the subsidies make it to where my health insurance premiums I get credits for now so I can afford it, you know? And I said, ma'am, and it's because it was a woman that said this to me. And I said, so if you correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, you make under $65,000 a year, you have a child, and your health insurance premiums on the exchange are somewhere around $1,000 a month, and you're receiving around $900 in credits. I don't know. And so you're paying $100 out of pocket for health insurance. And she says, yes. And I say, okay, so, and with that health insurance, you get what? And she goes, well, I get one preventative visit for me, one for my daughter. We both get one, gyno thing, one and whatever. And I said, okay, so you get all that. And I said, what's your deductible in this plan after that? She goes, well, I don't know. I said, well, if you go look at it, it's going to be probably about $12,000 to $18,000. I was like, so it doesn't really kick into that anyway. I said, what if I told you that before this legislation was ever passed, you could have gotten the same plan, if not even, more coverage for less money than that? And then I said, and oh, by the way, without the moral hazard of now you not wanting to make more money, because as soon as you make more money, you take an instant pay cut because you lose the subsidies. I was like, you have been imposed with a glass ceiling by the federal government because of something you think is good for you. And she was like, I've never thought of it that way. These people aren't thinking, Marcus. They're not thinking. That's the problem.
Well, on the Obamacare thing, I want to give the American people an epiphany, a grand awakening. And I'm sure you know this. Who wrote the affordable health
The
care?
insurance companies, right?
The
Of course
insurance
it did.
companies.
Yes, it was a direct hand to them. It was extracted labor via force for the American people, and it was given to them as guaranteed profits, and it created embargoes and moats around competition. It's exactly what happens anytime government gets involved in industry or enterprise. This is exactly what happens. Prices go up, services go down, and competition gets eliminated statutorily. Gets eliminated. It's not like there's not somebody out there in your neighborhood right now that got some money that might say, hey, you know what, Marcus? I'll insure you and your family. I'll write up a contract. I'll have my lawyer write it up. You pay me $200 a month, man, and I'll pay your medical bills.
Right.
Can't do that. Can't happen. Not allowed. No, you need to do this, this, and this. And oh, by the way, it has to cover this, and this. And you go, wait a second, I'm a single male. I'm 24 years old. Why do I have to have a OBGYN coverage? And the answer you get is, well, I mean, men can have babies too. It's all bullshit. It's just, and so again, that's why I challenge anybody listening to this or anybody out there, if they meet a statist of any color and they begin to defend these things, simply ask them that very basic question. What of the policies of the people you defend has done anything to make your life better? Anything. One person did bring up one here. They said, well, I'm going to have broadband internet now. Because of the internet, thing that, whatever happened. And I was like, hey, man, have you heard of Starlink? Like, we were already solving these problems without government picking and choosing winners and extracting your taxes. And they're like, well, Starlink is like $600, man, for like a starter package. I'm like, what if you had your whole fucking paycheck? Would it be that big a deal then? Like, you pay more than that every month in your paycheck, right? And he's like, yeah, I didn't think about it like that. Again, they're not thinking, Marcus. They're just not thinking. Well, we could go into the factors of why that is to be. And, the primary one is public education. That's a whole different, we touched on that when we talk about it every time pretty much. Yeah. But I wanted to, speaking of speakers, there were some very interesting, I'm talking about speakers of the House. Yeah, go through some choices. Yeah, let's do choices. Interesting declarations today. One was Steve Scalise. Yep. One was Jim Jordan. Okay. And there's some people nominating Donald Trump. Yeah. So I have problems with, and this isn't partisan, this is just my factual driven analysis of the situation. I have problems with all three. And I'm going to tell you, let's go by one. So Jim Jordan, anybody who knows him, I have a problem with that Ohio State thing where he knew about the wrestling coach. Okay. And so, he knew that the wrestling coach was a chomo and didn't do shit about that. I mean, I'm unfamiliar with this exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with it at a surface level, at a media level, but like, I mean, what is the details of that? Like, how much did this gentleman really know? He knew what was going on. Like, definitively 100% outside the headlines and outside the story reporting, he definitively knew what was going on. Indisputable. Is it undisputable or indisputable? Indisputable. It's an indisputable fact. It's indisputable fact that he knew that the wrestling coach was a chomo and he did not say anything. And I find that disturbing, but that's the only real problem I could find with Jim Jordan.
aside from him being a Republican. And I would say that if he was a Democrat, because I don't like Democrats or Republicans. Today I read about Steve Scalise, and there was a quote by him a few years back where he said he's David Duke without the baggage.
Okay.
And that part is kind of weird that he would refer to David Duke because, well,
So
I'm gonna tell
being
you
from Louisiana.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, being from Louisiana, I am very well affiliated. I'm not affiliated. I'm very well affiliated. They're going to take that soundbite and say it. I'm very well informed regarding David Duke. Grew up as a kid in the 90s when he ran for everything.
Yeah,
and if anybody wants to go watch some interesting TV and a snapshot of state politics in the South in the 1990s, there's a debate between Edwin Edwards and him, a PBS debate that's really, really good. I would invite anybody to watch it. And I watched it actually recently, a few years ago. And, it's interesting to see kind of how that happened. But yeah, dude, David Duke, man. I don't know that that's somebody you should say that you are without the baggage. He just is baggage. That's really the thing. He might have had, if I gave him a completely non-biased, as much of a robot opinion as possible of policy, he had a few good ideas, but they weren't anything unique to him. I mean, these are ideas that were purported by other people. So I guess essentially what he's saying is that he's just a piece of shit, but he's just not the piece. I mean, is that what he's kind of saying? Like, I got the smell and I got the, whatever, but I'm not the real thing.
I'm going to tell you something that's slightly controversial for a black dude, but I respect David Duke because you know where he stands. There's no question.
You did. That's right.
You did. And I got that from my dad. My dad grew up in Jim Crow, Alabama. And he told me one time, because we worked at the same company, this is when I was barely starting my IT career. He says, I have more respect for a Klan member than I do that guy that works across the hall from me. And he said that because the guy that worked across the hall from him would talk crap about him because he's the guy that was high up in the company.
Now, if you heard, like, again, now, but since we're still on David Duke, if you heard the David Duke defenders of the mid-90s, the defenders of him would say that he wasn't a racist, okay? That he was just as, like, the NAACP is a proponent of, colored people in America, that he thought that there should be an organization for white people. We can have that conversation. That's not one that's I'm opposed to having. But that would be the thing. But what was funny is, man, I grew up in Louisiana, and the people that were saying that were like the most racist people that I knew. They were like maybe 3 doors down the neighbor, talking to my dad in the front yard, and like he'd drop an N-word every 20 words, and he'd be like, well, I'm not racist. I'm like, well, Ben, you're kinda.
Well, I always ask people, why did the NAACP ever exist versus why did the Klan ever exist?
Right.
It's always about the origin story. In the military, there's always measures, then there's countermeasures. So there's going to be things that happen in our society that are going to bring about things that are going to counter those things that happen in our society. And ideally, I would love a world.
I think that you and I should start like a NAAWP, and you be the spokesperson. We can make a lot of money.
What does that stand for?
It's like the NAA white people thing. Like, let's just do that.
National Association for Advancing
White People.
People. I would join a National Association for Advancing Liberty.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Because we got a lot of white people out there screwing up, Marcus, that need some advancing. All right, like go hit up the trailer park here in North Little Rock, and you will find some white people that need some advancing. And so I'm an advocate of, if we can get an organization put together to get these people thinking, then dude, let's do it.
Candace Owens or the Hodge twins or any of those black conservative fans, I really, they talk like they aren't black. I don't like any of those people, but I also don't like black gangsters and black criminals that go out and kill black men,
glorify violence and materialism.
Yeah. Because there was a rapper, his name is Special Ed, and he had one of the greatest joints of the 90s, I Got It Made. And he was blaming NWA for certain aspects of violence that plagues the Black community right now.
Okay.
And I didn't disagree with him.
I mean, good. I mean, you really can't. I mean, it's true,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah. But NWA was the era where they were reporters more so than propagators.
that's true. And at some point in time, like, you have to ask yourself, where does the reporting become the propagating, right? Like,
Now, yeah, it's not reporting anymore.
there's never really a good line to delineate where that is, because, like, think about it. Like, you start writing this music like with your buddies in the living room, not realizing it's going to be maybe number one of the charts, and iconic and change, music history. You don't know that, like this is going to change things. But yeah, man, I'm with you on that, dude. Yeah, I mean, all right, so no NAAWP then, unless we can get it for Liberty.
That actually exists. You just rekindled a memory. The National Association for the Advancement of White People actually exists.
It really exists? Okay. All
It
right.
really exists. Go ahead and Google that.
We need to see if they'd
know if
sponsor this
David
podcast.
We
How awesome would that be?
we could get every racist organization to understand that we have a voice that they need to hear.
Dude, here's what we should do. No, seriously, we need to go find every white race, like the black racist organizations, the white ones, whatever they are, and then we get them secretly as sponsors, and none of them know the other people are sponsors, and then we all let it hang out on the air. We come out and be like, today's episode is sponsored by, like, two groups that hate each other.
Fun fact: the Nation of Islam, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, worked with several white supremacist organizations because they believe in the separation and they wanted separate homelands.
That's the Malcolm X theory, right? Yeah.
No, that's pre-Mecca Malcolm X. Post-Mecca Malcolm X is a whole different subject matter, where he still felt there was elements of the white ruling class society that could not be dealt with, but he was willing to talk with people post Mecca. I encourage everybody to read about Malcolm X post Mecca, because that was he had a what's the term, not a clairvoyance, but when he went to Mecca, he worshiped with blonde, blue-eyed Muslims. And he didn't realize that that was something that actually existed until he went to Mecca on the pilgrimage, and he changed his philosophy. That's why the Nation of Islam assassinated him, because it wasn't solely about race anymore. It was more about humanity.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I could see that, right? I mean, we've talked about that, how race baiting is a big money maker, right? I mean, it's a $1 billion industry. Let's be honest. It really is. And so, yeah, I could see people trying to protect the profits that are like, hey, man, we can't have this guy who's a very well-known, black activist come back and say, you know what, I was wrong. And they're like, yeah, we got to shut that down. I could see that. I could see that,
But you have to look at the times. The times were very polarizing, where
well, they're polarizing now, Marcus.
Well, not to the point where if you didn't step off the sidewalk when a person was walking towards you, you could be.
No, I mean, but today they're polarized now, not by color. They're polarized now by political belief. Like, if you're a conservative, and even a MAGA conservative, whatever, and you were walking down the street and you get, like, knocked out, right? That's like celebrated. But if a conservative, for instance, was to do something against maybe what we call a typical progressive Marxist, whatever, that would be demonized, right? They can do no wrong. They do all the wrong. And so we're now just divided along political lines. And like, so you see it happen too, because you're a libertarian like I am. I will post something, and then like half the people will call me a dumb liberal, and half the people will call me a maggot or something like that, because I've pissed off both people, right?
Right.
Because most people now are not voting for things, they're voting against the other thing. Race baiting is the biggest driver of both authoritarian parties. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what's sad. And that's one of the motivating factors why I do this enterprise. And when I came across you, I felt like we could, the synergy that we could bring forward to the American people and show them that, yes, there are issues that affect both of us as individuals, but there the overreaching, the umbrella issue is liberty,
Right.
and the government interfering with that enterprise of our liberties, our personal liberties. Because I was in talking to one of my coworkers today, I was saying, what happens if you eliminated the war on drugs?
Yeah.
What would America look like if we just got rid of that sole aspect of policy the American government has? And it's 50 plus years old, trillions of dollars later, and drugs are still winning this war.
A better question, a
yeah,
better question to ask people is not what would happen if you ended it, because you will get a lot of open-ended answers. You'll get people that are like, well, everybody's going to be on drugs. I mean, if you end the war on drugs, Marcus, everybody going to be doing drugs. That's an answer you're going to get. Now,
well,
if you ask them this question instead, what would America look like today had the war on drugs never started? That's a better question, because all of a sudden that gets their wheels thinking. They're like, oh, you don't have an 80s crack epidemic. You don't have fentanyl. These things don't come into existence, right? You probably already have a cure for depression, PTSD, anxiety that don't involve the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, so you talked about there's measures and countermeasures. The war on drugs is a perfect example of that, right? I mean, that's the entire war on drugs is measures and countermeasures.
Right. And our current war on drug crisis with fentanyl, that's a proxy war by China.
I mean, you could call it that. Yeah. I think it's just a profit. I think it's just a profit motive. I mean,
there's one thing that when you talk about China and you talk about national security, is the fact that our precursors for America's drugs for cholesterol, diabetes, just about every drug you could think of, all the precursors come from China or India.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about national security and a drug-ridden society, and that's the wrong term, because this is medication that's saving lives and prolonging lives.
I mean, we could go back and forth about that. Like, we're not going to argue the merits of, current, prescription medication for high blood pressure, cholesterol, or anything. But you're right. Yes, the majority of precursors for this industry comes from these places. Because we at some point in time decided we were going to outsource these sort of things. I think honestly, Marcus, the real war between China and America is a war with energy. I think that's going to be the real war.
But fentanyl, the precursors for fentanyl and the precursors from fentanyl come directly from China. They're dropped off on cargo ships in Baja, California. Then the Mexican cartels process the precursors and make fentanyl, and then they're bringing it across the border.
I don't know enough about how to make fentanyl. I'm not going to go Google that. I don't need to be on another list. But
that's happening.
But I mean, I would imagine you could probably. I would imagine that maybe you could do that without China. But dude, I go back and forth on the China fentanyl thing, between it like being I don't believe it's a concerted war of intent. I think that people are just making money, and that's what's happening.
That's part of it. Yeah,
I don't think that anybody sat down and said, how do we get the Americans? And somebody's like, man, we can make this shit called fentanyl, and we can send it over there, and we can have our agents put it in everything, and we can kill Prince and Mac Miller and Lil Peep, and we can get all these people dead, and that's how we can do it. I think it was just money. I think that it's just like, hey, we've talked about last episode. You had Purdue Pharmaceuticals, put out something that got millions of people addicted. You yanked that supply from them, overly prohibited, doctors taking care of patients, and boom, you open up the black market. And of course, with our, we're not in Afghanistan or Southeast Asia anymore. The actual precursors you need for heroin, because you actually need precursors for those, don't happen. And so that filled a void. Somebody somewhere goes, hey man, we can't get you heroin because we need opium plants for that, but we can get you fentanyl because we can make that. And, and that's kind of what I think would happen.
So we got two in the hole right here. We're going to start off with Kenneth first. What do you think about what he said?
You mean overdose deaths would be nearly non-existent, suicide rates would be nearly what they are, and pharmaceutical companies would have a less hold on political cults parties? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have Steve.
The cartel just put up signage that said "No more fentanyl. It's killing too many." Yeah, right.
El Chapo's people put that up today. Well, I read about it today. El Chapo's people are saying no more fentanyl. So, I think Americans are remiss in thinking about this fentanyl crisis and where it started. It started with the war in Afghanistan because
it started with the troop drawdown and the war and the opiate war, like the war on opioids. is when this became started. I mean, dude, fentanyl was a cancer treatment, like pain management drug that was typically supplied in patches and like lollipops, and it was used for some sedation stuff in like ERs and trauma units. But that was like, it was not like a thing. I guarantee you 5-6 years ago, if you asked the average recreational drug user if they knew what fentanyl was, a lot of people wouldn't know.
No.
They wouldn't have never heard of it. And now everyone knows it, and so, yeah,
well,
I mean,
it's also free market capitalism because, the United States is very active in South America, eradicating coca fields and all of that stuff. So after they started doing that in the 80s, meth came into being, and meth was a chemical base where you could use commonly.
We made this, yeah. We've talked about this, how we've done this before. How you're not going to take away the desire. What you're going to do is you're going to create an alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when they
usually a more dangerous alternative.
Exactly. They cracked down on meth and all the precursor drugs to that were readily available. Now we have fentanyl, and it's coming in, and there's also a horse tranquilizer thing that's hitting the streets right now. You're going to hear a lot more about that coming into
trank or whatever, right? And then like you look at our inner cities, man, like your grand state of California, man. I see like videos from like your streets, dude, and I'm like, wow, bro. Like, yeah.
Dude, it was 90 something degrees here today. It was, and wind was blowing, the sky was clear, our smog got blown out. Don't talk shit about the Golden State, bro.
Oh, I'm gonna talk shit about it, man. When you have like people shitting on the streets, Marcus, and active, like, dude, like, like mayors being like, hey, yeah, it's cool, man. Like, set up tent cities right here, and y'all just, shit on the street. Like,
hey, okay, so,
I mean, come on. Yeah.
Are they
killing Philly right now? Yeah.
Are they paying property taxes?
No, they're not, man.
No. Are they paying any homeowners?
You're right. It's the anarchist model, right?
They are the ultimately free individuals in our society.
And this is where I defer to. There's a big difference between being philosophically bound and earthly good, right? The truth is, yes, you can make the argument that there's like nothing philosophically wrong with any of this. The truth is, dude, nobody wants this shit in their neighborhoods. Nobody wants this shit around their kids. Nobody does. And so here's another question. Is it violating the NAP if like homeless Joe puts a tent on the sidewalk in front of your house and every day is just shitting on the sidewalk in front of your house?
See, I have countermeasures.
See, yeah, measures and countermeasures.
Yeah. That includes sudden fires, annoying noises, possibly chemical agents. There's all kinds of stuff I mean,
do. Turn the sprinklers around,
right,
although you might be, are y'all doing the water thing there? Like where you are in California, like you can only get like 3 gallons of water like a year or something.
That's we had a tremendous winter and all the restrictions on our drought protocols were lifted.
Oh, wow.
And all the models.
The Crown has allowed you water again?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
I praise God. See, you guys talk shit. You have Sarah Huckabee Liar Sanders.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
The Grand Hippo. I don't really think she's better than Gavin.
Oh, no, she's not, dude. You know what the new thing with her is, right?
The podium.
Yeah.
I follow everybody, bro.
Dude, so for those who don't know what's happening with the Arkansas governor, like her, love her, or hate her, this is just what's going on. So, like, this news outlet called the Blue Hog Report. Blue Hog, it's a Democrat left-leaning outlet. They FOIA stuff all the time here in the city. I got a fly in the house tonight. And they FOIA stuff all the time. And they were trying to FOIA her records for like travel and expenses and all kinds of things. And all of a sudden she's like freaking out and don't want to give anybody any information. So much so that then she calls up the state legislature and is like, hey, we got to have an emergency session. And you got to pass a law, which by the way got passed because they're all going to do her bidding, that says you can't get my stuff even retroactive to when I got elected. And now we realize that what happened is somebody bought a $19,000 podium.
Yeah.
But of course now it was personally paid for. Dude, this was a payoff to somebody. There was something. Podiums don't cost. And guys, if you go look up the podium,
made of? That's what I want to know. What is it made of? Rare earths?
Unicorn horn inlay and like Tyrannosaurus. I think molding and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's got like Stegosaurus like legs. I mean, it's something crazy. Right. Dude, it's a podium. And so like $19,000.
$19,000.
These people are all the same. They're all the same. And if you look at it, their relative amount of corruption is relative to the size of the government they manage, right?
Right.
Gavin Newsom has California, so he's way the fuck up here. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders has Arkansas, so he's right here. You know?
Yeah. Fourth largest economy in the world, and we have the best weather. Like I
Is
said,
it? I thought it was fifth largest.
Like 95 degrees here today. I'm like,
I thought it was fifth largest.
Is it fifth?
I think it's fifth. Yeah, I could be wrong. I think it's the fifth largest in the world.
Fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
Steve,
and still runs a deficit, right? So
yeah, we're running a deficit this year. And Gavin Newsom was touting his surpluses not even 2 years ago. This was like the last year or last 2 years. But what he didn't tell the Californians is those surpluses were based on over exaggerated and just ridiculous federal funding that came into the state because of COVID.
We had the same thing. We had a $1.6 billion surplus, and like, you know, of course, people are like, "Oh man, we're awesome," and I'm like, "Dude, half that money just is coming back." It's in the top 10, is all I know. Yeah, I mean, it's in the top 10.
Dude, Steve, you're supposed to. Steve is my black guy.
Yeah, I think it's 5. I think it's 5, man. That's what I think it is.
I think we're the largest after United States, China, Germany, and Japan.
So one more piece of California news. You guys had we've had the pistol brace ban has received an injunction. So that's currently on hold. Good news for the firearms community.
Right.
You had some interesting firearms news in California we didn't touch on last time we talked.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you've joined the rest of America, right?
Technically, no. This is still a 10-rounder, and I have a 10-rounder in my recently acquired G19.
So can you now get what I consider to be standard capacity magazines?
Not yet, because the Honorable Judge Benitez allowed the state of California to appeal, and he stayed his opinion while the state of California appealed. The most recent acts upon that is the appeal is going to be en blanc. So we're not going to have that next 3-judge panel bullshit where there's 3 judges that will make a ruling, and then that ruling, either side is going to appeal that ruling, so it goes to en blanc. So we've skipped that 3-judge part, and we're going to en blanc. There's a lot of BS still going on.
Well, of course,
because, the Ninth Circuit is still 1 or 2 judges, majority liberal, but it's not what it was before. But those judges are bound by the Bruin decision, so they can't make a judgment without taking that into account. And based on that judgment that the Supreme Court levied, it may be 1 to 2 years away, but California will be a state that allows standard capacity magazines going forward within 1 to 2 years. California will also be a state that will have standard issued AR-15s and AK-47s and every other semi-automatic rifle going forward within.
Marcus, what's the first thing you get? What's the first thing a Marcus Matthews buys?
Upon what, the so-called assault weapon or so-called magazine?
Well, magazine, I mean, you probably buy something for your Glock. I mean, I got that. Assault weapon, so-called assault weapon. What's the first thing you buy?
I have a California legal AK-47, but I want to get a straight Kalashnikov.
Okay.
That's what I want next.
You mean like you want an actual automatic Kalashnikov 1947? Like, you know, that's going to like run you like a ton of money. Like,
no, not an automatic.
I mean, you want like a Century Arms, or like, you know, like a Romanian, like a Wasser 10 or something like that. That's kind of what you're thinking.
You know what's interesting is all of those firearms are currently available in California.
But don't they look ugly as hell? Where you are, you got to have like a film thing.
They have a fin on the pistol grip.
Yeah.
So, and what separates California semi-automatic firearms from the rest of the free nation is wrapping your thumb around a pistol grip.
Okay. All right.
That I don't like how you laughed at that.
Dude, I think, yeah, it's crazy to me that we've gotten, like, think about it, dude, we've gotten these conversations where somebody in the 5th largest economy in the world, elected by the people, sat down probably for months on end, and had a discussion about a fin on the back of a pistol grip of a rifle, and they thought it was a really good decision. And somewhere, somebody's still patting themselves on the back about that, Marcus. I don't know who that guy is or who that lady is, but
Right.
somewhere someone's like, you know, that ugly ass firearm right there, that's all me.
I wanted to touch on what Steve said real quick because there are gun cases on the agenda for the Supreme Court, but there's only there's one that stands out to me, and all the rest are just I actually I don't know.
Are you talking about the kind of red flag, not the red flag case, but the domestic violence case thing?
The domestic violence case. I
Yeah.
think this is as with the Supreme Court over the last 10 years, they take up the most bullshit gun cases. Up until last year, when they took the New York case, that was the first real
Yep.
Second Amendment case they took. Other than that, they have consistently taken up bullshit cases. I don't think judgment call on whether somebody who has committed domestic violence or not is truly a Second Amendment case.
Well, time out real quick. While we're talking about gun stuff, remember, we need to thank our sponsor, Common Arms Trade Company. Spelled like it sounds like it's spelled. Look them up on Facebook. They got their link tree there. If the ban gets repealed, buy from them. If you live in a state where you don't have one, buy from them. He's got good stuff.
My new magazines from them, by the way.
I bought I got a like a tank top from them, you know. And my wife took it from me. She stole it from me, and she rocked it all week at the beach on our vacation.
Yeah, I wanted you to wear that because for California, the sun's out, and I still
sun's out, guns out, dude. I don't. So I need to write. I need to write Common Arms and be like, hey man, you need to send me another one because my wife has commandeered it. You know,
Common Arms, send us some t-shirts.
Yeah, she's the communist dictator here, man. Like she owns everything, you know. So there you go. So she took.
I get it. Happy wife, happy life.
It is true, man. And luckily, I have a really cool wife because she's like, oh, this is cool. It's about guns. I like guns, which is why I married her. But not the only reason I married her, but it's a big reason, right? Right. How's your wife about guns, man?
So this is an interesting story. When we first got married, she was completely anti.
Okay.
So I had to play chess, and I was thinking, like, how could I really bring her into the fold?
So you get like a dart gun or something, like?
No, what I did is I brought up Megan's Law because we have a Megan's Law website here in California that shows you the sex offenders in the neighborhood.
All right.
So I showed her how many sex offenders live within 3 blocks of us, and it was like more than 11. I was like, do you really trust your children living in this neighborhood without a means to defend them, with all of these chomos living in?
So what is the first gun that she kind of has as her own, or takes, like, because you probably owned firearms, but she's not cool with them, right?
We're not there yet, but she has recently said that I will go to the gun range, and before the end of the year, because I like going. It's a family thing to me. I like going, but I do my own thing. I go out there and train. I don't show all that shit because
you're not trying to play. You're not trying to weekend warrior, man.
No, I just don't want people to know my tactics and what I'm gonna do. That's the main thing. I go shooting often, but I don't want you to know how good I am. So
when it comes time for like sending your wife out there, going with your wife, my wife and daughter really, really enjoyed having a female instructor. I mean, they've shot with me plenty of times, right? But I mean, there's something about like kind of like that, girl power thing, and so there's a female firearms instructor here in Little Rock that kind of does a lot of classes with just all females, and she basically just works with females, and they really like got a lot out of it. Like, I think because they're more open to listen, maybe they're better, I'm an impatient trainer, Marcus. Like, I just expect to show you once and you get it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Like, it should. This is not hard.
Shoot the motherfucker in the chest.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. The slide is not hard to brack. No, it's not.
Yeah. If your life depended on it, you'll kick ass.
You better push and pull that damn thing. That's right. Yeah, that's interesting, dude. So you're getting there. So yeah, try maybe find a female firearms instructor she can go to. Try out some different guns. She might like that, dude. She might.
Yeah, and I think it's just the upbringing in California where guns were constantly associated with criminality.
Right.
And that's one thing, when I had my previous show, my previous enterprise, the other black guy who likes gun show, I wanted to emphasize that because in the black and brown community, which my wife is brown, um, grunts, guns are associated with gangbangers and criminals.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they're not associated with self-defense and anti-tyranny actions.
Man, that is an interesting dude. That's one of the ones that you can probably hammer home as like, what is it like to be a black guy that might be different than being a white guy, right? Like guns have never in my life, in kind of the zeitgeist of whiteness, ever been associated with criminality. They've
Right.
always been associated with either hunting,
Yeah.
father-son activities, good old-fashioned Americana, military pride, law enforcement pride, and then of course, the liberty and the preservation of liberty.
Right.
You're right, man. I could see how in the black community that could be the kind of connotation. Like I bring home, like literally the first time that the first semi-automatic sporting rifle I ever purchased on my own after being 18 years old was actually a Romanian AK-47.
Yep.
I bought it at a pawn shop in Shreveport, Louisiana. It was the one that I got 2 mags with it, a bayonet, cleaning kit, all this kind of stuff. And it was like $300. And I was so happy at it. This is awesome. And I brought it to my parents' house and I showed my dad in the kitchen. He's like, that's so cool, right?
Yeah.
I can see that same conversation happening in like a black household at the same time. And someone being like, oh my God, my son's now a gangbanger, right?
That would happen.
I could
And
see
that's
it. Yeah.
a lot of inner city households.
I could see it, man.
And what's sad about that is here in California, Ronald Reagan started the anti-Second Amendment movement with the Mulford Act. I think it was 67 or something like that. Well, the truth of the matter is, for black communities, that's the thing we earned from the civil rights movement, was the right to defend ourselves, more so than the right to vote or to go sit down at a lunch counter and eat a half-assed meal. None of that shit really matters. That all that shit was stupid to me. Why do you want to go eat and give your money to people that don't want you there?
That was always my that was that. Yeah, thanks for saying that, because that was always like, that's always kind of was my perspective as a young man, like a kid learning about like segregation, because of course you learn these things in growing up in the South, and especially in school in the South. And I'm like, why would, like, that seems pretty fucking dumb. Like, if I ran like a Piccadilly, like I want more customers, like, I mean, the city I grew up in, Marcus, is about 60% black. If I don't want black people eating at my restaurant, I'm losing 60% of my business. Like, I mean,
yeah. And a lot of people don't know about this history because they don't teach it, but there was an organization called Deacons for Defense and something. I forgot what it was called, but it was a group of black deacons that went with the Liberty Riders and the voter registration people, armed, to make sure the Klan didn't show up and there was any issues. Everywhere the Deacons for Defense went, there was no problems. And that's the thing. If you want freedom, if you want liberty, you got to be willing to defend that shit. You got to be willing to show, hey, yo, you have something to lose too if I don't get this basic God-given right. The liberty isn't some shit the government gives you.
That's right.
It's the shit that you are inherited upon your first heartbeat. You could take that sentence any way you want it, but that's my personal belief. I don't believe government should be involved in that personal belief. But your rights that you were given upon your first heartbeat are inherent to your being.
Amen, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Amen,
that's why I don't, that's my primary motivation for the way I speak to these certain issues.
Well, hold on. We got some news too, man. You're not now the other black guy that likes guns. Isn't Maj getting rid of Black Guns Matter?
Well, today he posted a video talking about he's ending Black Gun Matters because he has to fight.
Marcus, you're it now, dude. You're it, brother.
I've always,
you're it.
I've always been it. You know,
I know, but like now it's Marcus Matthews, man. Like that's there you go. And you're the real deal. Not saying that Maj is fake or not, but I'm saying you're the real deal, man. Like, you know, I know you on a personal level. I mean,
yeah, I appreciate his message, but I'm still waiting on that Black Guns Matter T-shirt I ordered.
Yeah, I forgot about you. Told me. Yeah, you ordered that like 2 years ago.
It's 6 years. I don't know if it's coming via Pony Express because he's in.
Dude, someone probably just snatched off the front porch, bro, and like
on the East Coast. Somebody's walking that shit to me.
Yeah,
but
dude, that's so funny.
It takes about 4 months to walk. You know, wagon trails took 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, dude, a guy just walked all across America like last year. I think his name's Glenn Isaiah Shields or something, or and it took like a year or like 10 months. He did from like all one place to another. So yeah, it should be able to be to you by now, man.
I honestly don't agree with.
So there we go. So tonight we have a big announcement. We have a new speaker coming, and we have there's now a new token black guy for the firearms movement. You know, you're going to take. So we got Colin Noor out there. What do you think about him? You going to be able to take him on?
No, hell no.
You don't
First
think
of
so?
all, he unfollowed me on Instagram because I criticized him because he's a short little fuck. Also, he doesn't use his real name. That's what Maj and Colin Noir both have in common. They don't use their real names. My name is Marcus Matthews.
Yeah.
Neither one of them they use stage names. So that shit is fake as fuck to me from the jump.
Yeah.
I believe if you're going to be about this liberty movement, and my dad told me you
got to be genuine, man.
No, he told me, you know, they're going to come after you.
You got to be genuine, though. Yeah, I mean, but like,
I was like, that's part of the process.
But I mean, if they're going to come after you anyway, like, shouldn't they come after you and you at least have, you know, retained your scruples and have been a man and been genuine and been who you are,
Nobody
right? Like,
will ever say I gave them a half-assed approach or I wasn't real with it.
When I filed for office here in Arkansas, you have to put down an address, right? And I didn't realize that, like, apparently it's not mandatory. Okay, I just thought it was. So I just put my house address down, and my wife was like, "Oh my god, you put our house address down." I was like, I invite someone to come here and fuck with me at my house. Like, I mean, like, you know, that's like so far down the real people who fuck with you are not going to show up at your house.
No,
because you show up at my house, I'm king of my fucking house. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is. I invite you to please kick in my door, please, because you'll be the last person that does it. You know, one way or another, that you're going to be the last person that does it.
By no means am I hood according to LA definition. I'm not a hood guy because I grew up mainly in the suburbs. But even in the suburbs, there was one fact that was indisputable. If you go to somebody's house to fight them, there's a good chance you're going to catch a hot one because that is one of the most clear cases of self-defense, even here in California.
Yeah.
If you come to my house expecting trouble, you can expect trouble. And that's what I don't understand because, you know, I'm a rabble rouser and I've had some people on Instagram come up to me and say, why don't you drop your address? And I was like, what the fuck do you think's going to happen if you come to my house?
Yeah, exactly. This isn't going to be a good thing. No. I mean, and that's the thing too, man, Marcus. Most people today are keyboard warriors at best, and the ones that aren't are already psychologically so unhinged that there's not much you can do anyway to kind of prevent those sort of interactions. Maybe we should wrap up with this and then kind of cut it because we're about an hour, 10 minutes right now. So one more thing I kind of wanted to cover. Did you see the video of the guy in New York?
Which guy?
The guy in New York that got stabbed.
I saw the first part of that video, but it was taking too long. And my adult ADD kicked in, and I just scrolled past it. What happened,
dude? So, man, without going into names, details, and everything else. So, basically, essentially, kind of a progressive activist in New York who has been somewhat instrumental in kind of making New York a place where self-defense is illegal and being a criminal is somehow legalized. He was on a date with his girlfriend, and he's violently stabbed and murdered on the street by what appears to be a crazy person. And watching the video is really hard. And I don't recommend anyone go watch it. It's not like you necessarily have to go watch it, but it is one of those sobering reminders of the fact that, like, the people who continually push this, unicorn rainbow lollipop agenda, right? That, like, we should all get along and, like, you don't need to defend yourself and the police are here. It's not reality. Like, reality is when it comes down to violence, it's you and you alone that can defend yourself, and it's going to be you and you alone. And Marcus, I'm 41 years old, man. I probably still can throw some hands a little bit, but I can't throw them like I could when I was 20. And there's individuals that no matter how good I am at doing that, I can't beat up, right? That video was crazy. That's a gun charge you got. Exactly. That's 100% one you have to take. And we talk about this a lot, how firearms are the great equalizer. And I want it to be the most uneven fight possible if you're defending your family. So that's why I don't like magazine restrictions. People are like, why do you need 30 rounds? I mean, if you're a good shot, you can shoot with one. I'm like, first off, have you ever shot when you're scared? First off, have you ever shot when you're injured? Have you ever shot when you're startled and surprised? And oh, by the way, yeah. And have you ever shot when there's multiple attackers? And oh, by the way, they don't always stop with one shot, No. And so if it's you defending your family, I want you to have a 250 round magazine. I don't care. It needs to be the most unfair fight possible because I want you and your family to live. And I think that anybody that pushes, that disagrees with that or is instrumental in trying to limit that is either stupid, evil, or both. And so again, it's a video that I don't necessarily recommend everybody go watch, but it is odd that, like, history and in reality is not without a sense of irony, that this is a gentleman that kind of pushed these sort of things, and he met a fate similar to what he's kind of wanting everybody else to meet, apparently.
The only thing I could say to that is you are your own first responder. And for you to not take your safety seriously and it ends up being detrimental to your life, that's your own fault.
His name was Ron Carson, by the way. Ryan Thorson Carson, 32, was stabbed multiple times shortly before 4 a.m. in Brooklyn, New York, on Monday.
Here in California, before the Bruin decision, the only means you had to really carry a weapon to defend yourself was a knife. And I have carried a tactical knife on me for as long as I can remember. And now that we can get CCWs in California without jumping through massive hoops and all of that stuff, I encourage everybody to do that.
Man, I'm so grateful to live in a state where I don't have to pay for a right that's mine already.
Well, you don't have to pay for a CCW?
Dude, I don't need a CCW. Arkansas is a constitutional carry state.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's in itself is a contradiction in terms. Like, it's already constitutional carry. That the federal government was supposed to be protecting constitutional carry.
It's more than a few $100s to get a CCW.
What do we say? Is Libertarians, a permit is when the government takes a right from you and sells it back?
And sells it back to you.
And sells it back to you. Yeah, exactly. So no, in Arkansas, you do not need one. And oh, by the way, I never really ever thought I needed one anyway. I mean, I'm kind of the opinion of this, that, like, let's say that you can't get one, or it's impossible. If you ever have to use your firearm, it's not the least legal consequence you got to worry about is whether you had the right card in your wallet or not. You were looking at a consequence, likely or hopefully so, of even being here or not being here. And I'm of the opinion that at that point in time, I don't really give a shit about anything else. We'll deal with all that stuff later. But yeah, no, here in Arkansas, bro, you don't need anything. No one's going to hassle you about it.
Okay. So in summary, based upon this emergency episode of the Black Powder podcast, and getting back to, we talked about a lot of the subject matters here, and I found them all interesting and beneficial.
Of course.
So those who didn't watch live,
we have amazing discourse.
Yeah. Where do you think Congress goes? Because they're setting up a vote for speaker next Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, because the House can't do anything until there's one. So, dude, I don't know. I mean, I would like to say that you're dealing with, rational individuals who are making choices that are transparent and open, and that they're going to look for the best person for the job. There's a real part of me that realizes we just emergency funded the government for 45 days. and these contentious issues that were never worked out are still not worked out. And wouldn't it be oh so nice if we just can't get around to it yet because we don't have somebody to actually convene Congress? So that's kind of where I am with it is between now and then I'll let the story play out. If I had to pick like who's going to be like the person that's going to be picked, right? I would say right now, nada. No one right now declared. That's
Solis or Trump.
That's and only because historically speaking, that's kind of typical, right? Like usually in these very contentious arguments for speaker, it's not usually the first person out of the gate that ends up being it. Just kind of that's how it kind of happens, at least recently. So if recent history is any trend of what's going to happen, then it's somebody that hasn't been named yet. But either way, dude, I don't have any nothing's going to change. Like it doesn't matter.
Let's make sure we understand that, my fellow Americans.
Yeah.
Nothing's
going to change. Yeah. So
don't expect.
Okay. So Marcus, I'll ask you a question and we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
If you can pick anybody, okay, you asked me who I thought of the current people who would be and who would I pick. If you could pick anyone, I think Kenneth might have blown our answer here, but if you could pick anyone to be the speaker, because again, the Speaker of the House doesn't have to be an elected official in Congress, who would Marcus pick?
Spike Cohen.
You wouldn't pick me, man? I'm so mad, dude. I was like,
no, because I need you here. You'll leave me. You'll 100%.
I could do this from DC. No, I think Spike would be my choice, or Justin Amash. I think Spike would be a good one.
I mean, just imagine Spike Cohen right now, the Speaker of the House, and where that would be. I can't choose you solely because I need you in my life.
I tell you who else would be good. Larry Sharp would be good.
He would be.
Larry is a unifying character. Okay, he has the ability to take people that have different ideas and kind of get them together. So Larry could be a good one too. And so I'm with you on that. So all right, this has been a good episode, man. I've enjoyed this a lot. Woo, there we go. Got some sound effects.
I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. Steve, Kenneth, who else do we have?
And then, of course, all the people that will listen to us on Firearms Radio Network. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Michael, I want to thank you for your time and efforts in this matter. You're an awesome individual. I wish more people would follow and like you, because I think you're an American that is America.
Well, thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. Thank you. But we need more people to follow the Black Powder Podcast. Again, listen to us on Firearms Radio Network or wherever podcasts are distributed. And again, visit Common Arms Trade Company next time you want to buy a gun. Give them a holler.
Yeah, how do you guys like the sound effect? I'm going to do that one more time.
Let us know.
Yeah. So, as always, as we end this podcast, we wish you to live free
or die. Sign us off, Marcus.
It's the Black Powder Podcast.
Black Powder Podcast. The BPP.